On April 26, 1937, hell broke loose over the city of Guernica in Spain. At exactly 4:30 p.m., a 2-hour bombing of the peaceful city began. Spain was then in a state of civil war. The Republic was fighting against the nationalists led by Franco, an ally of fascist Germany. In Guernica, there were some factories that supplied the Republic, but the entire peaceful city ultimately fell victim to the bombing. The German Condor Legion, followed by Franco's aviation, practically wiped the city off the face of the earth. Almost 1,000 people out of 4,000 in the city suffered, including women and children. At that time, history had no precedents for such a powerful air raid on a peaceful city. During the First World War, which ended 20 years before the events, aviation was in its infancy. Bombs converted from artillery shells were dropped manually from airplanes and airships. But in 20 years, aviation had made great strides, and Nazi Germany, preparing for war, needed an arena for practice and, at the same time, a demonstration of power. In 2 hours, 40 tons of bombs were dropped on the city, and the fire that raged after that destroyed almost everything that was left. The very next day, an article about the tragedy was published in the Times magazine. The monstrous consequences of the bombing were a shock to the whole world. Soon, other newspapers came out with shocking images of the destruction, horrifying both the world and one Spanish artist who was then living in Paris. His name was Pablo Picasso, and he learned about the bloody drama from the morning newspapers. At that time, he already had an order for a painting from the Spanish Republic for the next World Exhibition in Paris, which was to take place in just a month. However, he had been looking at the blank canvas for a week and could not decide how best to present his native Spain and himself, Pablo Picasso, at the exhibition. The answer knocked on his door with the arrival of the postman, who brought the morning newspaper, on the front page of which Guernica, drowned in destruction, called to him. The artist was shocked, and in just 3 weeks, as if possessed, he will paint a huge canvas measuring 8 by 4 meters. The canvas, which, just like in the newspapers, in black and white, will show the burning horror taking place in one room, as if zoomed in from a newspaper photograph and seen by Picasso among the ruins left by bombs and fire. He is in such a hurry that there are splashes and smudges everywhere, and later, at the exhibition, this will be the subject of criticism, but these spontaneous signs of furious inspiration now, in our day, are evidence of the shock the artist experienced in those days and gave birth to a painting that many consider the most valuable masterpiece created by Picasso in his life, and the loudest anti-war statement in history. By this time, Picasso had already tried all the styles and approaches. He had already abandoned Cubism and was into distorting reality with all his might. Watch my video about Picasso to understand the evolution of his work. The main challenge at this time for him was to convey emotion, not by simply copying existing objects, people, and animals. Any artist can do this, but by simplifying them as much as possible. To what extent can you simplify and distort the image of a person so that the viewer will still recognize him and feel the depicted emotional message? How to convey grief or joy, leaving only barely recognizable features. Eyes, ears, noses, displaced from their places. Horns and tails growing in places we are accustomed to. 1937 is the time of the final concentration of experiments that Picasso conducts, and in Guernica he will splash out everything that he has come to over the years of trial and error. Guernica is a very uncharacteristic picture for Picasso. Usually he concentrated on one object, most often it was women. And here he was faced with the task of depicting an entire scene without losing himself, to create something that could surpass the artists who described the horrors of war before him. You may think that the picture looks like a child's drawing, and technically it is. But now we will analyze in detail every corner of this incredible canvas, and you will see that behind the apparent simplicity lies an abyss of talent and rage caused by the inhuman tragedy of the small Spanish town of Guernica. There are 2 light sources in the painting, a lamp in the shape of an eye on the ceiling, and a candle that the woman is pushing through the window. But look, the light in the shape of a triangle falls on the room, not from the lamp, but from the candle. at least partially dispelling the pitch darkness. The thing is that a light bulb in Spanish is a bombilla, which clearly indicates to us the bombing. The lamp is made in the shape of an eye, which watches from above, filled with bombs that have already splashed down in the form of sharp rays of light, which in fact do not illuminate the room. The lamp argues with the candle extended from outside, which seems timid and uncertain, capable of going out from any breeze, but it is the one that dispels the darkness. The hand of a woman who has stuck her head in the window covers those in the room with light, like a protective dome, from the merciless light of the bombilla. On the right below, we see another woman, crippled, wounded, dragging her leg, who looks at the candle with hope. The candle is a symbol of hope and salvation. In the picture, almost everyone is a woman, except for one figure, a soldier lying on the floor, dismembered, killed. The soldier is the defenders of the city, who in vain laid down their lives to save Guernica and its people. The soldier is already dead. He is lying on the floor, and his severed hand is still clutching a broken sword, a symbol of failure. But a flower is growing from his hand, and with this, Picasso tells us that others will take the place of the fallen. The sprout of retribution has already begun to sprout. On the other river, we see stigmas, a symbol of torment. He did everything he could. But the soldier himself can no longer protect the women in the room. The only hope for salvation is a helping hand from outside. Peaceful cities need protection, Picasso tells us, and only humanity and hope with a woman's face can save us from the approaching horror of fascism. On the right, we see another woman in a burning house, and this is perhaps one of the most powerful images in this painting. The woman cannot get out of the house. She stretches her arms to the sky in a helpless cry. Her eyes, in the form of tears, speak of suffering. Look at how simple and how effective the technique is. It would not have been possible if Picasso had painted in a different, more realistic manner. Eyes in the form of tears, and we understand everything. The fire that engulfed Guernica after the bombing took even more lives than the attack itself. Imagine people burning alive, trapped in their own homes. The horrible, absurd death of people who 5 minutes ago were making plans for the future, laughing, cooking dinner, or making love. The women in this painting are a symbol of innocence, despair, helplessness, everything that humanity should protect, not destroy. And on the right is another woman with a child in her arms. The child is dead, he has gone limp, and we see that the mother, unable to let go of the lifeless body, howls into the sky from longing and grief. Her tongue, sharp as a thorn, is a scream piercing the space. In general, this whole picture screams, it vibrates, it lets out a wail. And this woman with a child in her arms is a terrible, merciless reproach to war, murderers, violence, who do not understand who is right and who is guilty. And a woman with eyes full of tears, holding her own lifeless child in her arms, a natural result of any war. But Picasso is not the first to use these images. Exactly 300 years before this, Peter Paul Rubens created the painting The Horrors of War in 1639. And let's see how similar the images are and how much the manner of their depiction has changed. Look, here we also see a scene of war, where women personify the civilian population and men the war. Here is a woman raising her hands to the sky. Here is a torch candle in the hands of a defender. Here is a fallen soldier with a sword in his hand. Here is a woman reaching for the light, and here is a mother hiding a child. Surprisingly, 300 years have not changed the most terrible thing that war brings. Only the form of murder has changed. And the artists have changed. But does Picasso's painting affect us less? Do its screams sound quieter? But we will not find one sinister participant in this massacre in Rubens' painting. This is the bull that Picasso placed at the top left. The bull is the only participant in the scene who looks straight at us, indifferently, not paying attention to what is happening. His tail looks like smoke, his eyes are like human eyes. And on the right is his antipode, a horse, which seems to be woven into the fabric of chaos and pain. Art critics argue about what these two animals mean. Most agree that they represent life and death. The bull is a symbol of death, or even fascism, and the horse is a symbol of life. But Picasso himself said this bull is just a bull, and this horse is just a horse. If you give certain objects in my paintings meaning, then maybe you are right, but it is not me who gives them this meaning. That is why I think that Picasso, who in his work often turns to the image of a bull as the most cruel, spectacular, and wild pastime of the Spaniards, placed it here as an integral part of the Spanish self-perception. And the horse, most likely it is indeed just a horse, of which, despite cars, there were still quite a lot on the streets of European cities at that time. The horse, which was literally sucked into this meat grinder, became part of the madness that fell from the sky. Everything got mixed up. Horses, people. And one more thing. If we look closely, between the bull and the horse, we will see a dove, a symbol of hope. It is only partially white, its wings are black, its body is vanishingly small, practically imperceptible. How ghostly the hope is that peace will soon reign in his native Spain. And this is almost a prophecy, because the Franco regime will last till 1975, almost 30 years more. But it was on this day that the tyrant first dropped bombs on his own people, announcing his inhumanity to the world in newspaper headlines. And it is the newspaper lines that we see crossing the canvas. It is they that brought the description of an unprecedented nightmare, the very letters that Picasso turned into a masterpiece. The painting was exhibited in Paris, but most did not like it. Viewers did not understand the symbolism, broken lines, and too simple manner of depiction. The critic wrote that Guernica saw only the backs of visitors, and the jury chose another painting, Black Plains, by Horacio Ferrer, executed in a more traditional and understandable manner for the public. And look, in essence, we see the same message here. Women, old people, and children suffering from war. But could the artist have put into the canvas all the symbolism that Picasso put into it? The image of a woman burning in her own house, a soldier, hope, a lost child, a horse caught in a meat grinder. It would take several such paintings. Despite the fact that the image is simplified as much as possible, has it become primitive? I think the comparison with the winner of the exhibition does not speak in its favor. And as we now know, time has put everything in its place. After the exhibition, the painting began to travel around the world, like a powerful poster, helping to raise money for the Republic. To do this, the huge canvas had to be removed from the frame and rolled up each time. And so Guernica traveled around the world, gaining fans and acquiring the status of the loudest anti-war statement. When the Nazis captured Paris, they came to Picasso's studio, where a photograph of Guernica hung on the wall. "Did you do this?" they asked him. "No, you did it," the artist answered.